let's finish with this. With all the Lane drama and Ole Miss ranked where they are, let's assume, well, either way, right? I think if they lose the Egg Bowl, unless they just got absolutely demolished, I don't know that it matters. Will the committee take them not having a head coach, if rumors be true, or if he was to leave, or if Ole Miss gave him this ultimatum, whatever? Would the committee take that into account? Because there is somewhat of a precedent from a couple of years ago of if you lose your starting quarterback, and I'm being very intentional with this conversational, if you lose your starting quarterback, you're not the same team.
Right.
Would the same apply to a coach? If Ole Miss was to lose a coach, a play calling head coach?
But yeah, especially one like Lane Kiffin, who like I watched come to Athens a few weeks ago and like literally diagnosed Georgia's formations over and over again. And then after, like right before the clock was getting to the spot where Ole Miss would have time to check their play and Georgia wouldn't, he would point at a specific Georgia defender and, you know, give a signal to Trinidad Chambliss, and then Trinidad Chambliss would throw a receiver to the spot that defender was supposed to cover. Yeah, like, I think it matters a lot, okay? Like, there's Lane Kiffin, the head coach, and the program CEO, but Lane Kiffin, the play caller, is one of the most talented play callers
he's elite
in college football.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. Awesome. He changes games. He won them the Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
Like I am,
and he almost won them the Georgia game.
Yes.
And like we've seen him do it, man. And the way that they come out in games and very often start fast, that is game planning and preparation. And no disrespect to Charlie Weiss Jr., who by all accounts is a good offensive mind. But dude, when you see a hot play caller, whether it's offensive or defensive, like in their zone on a sideline, looking at formations out in front of them and diagnosing those in real time.
Yeah.
Like there's only a few guys in the sport that are as good as Lane is. Like Kirby. I've seen Kirby do this. Saw him do it at Georgia Tech last year when that game got into overtime in the fourth quarter and diagnose it over and over. But like that is a very rare skill that just very few people have to be able to really do it in real time. And it makes Ole Miss what they are. So yeah, losing him is a huge, huge deal. Personnel might not change, but the way that personnel is used certainly does.
If you're the committee, do you take that in consideration? I can't imagine that they would drop them out for it. And so I don't even want to suggest that, but do you rank them a little bit lower? If they go and say he leaves before the Egg Bowl and they just barely squeak by Mississippi State and you say, man, they look a little different than they did with Lane there. Would you maybe drop them down a couple of spots because of that?
I think that's fair, even though it's not fair.
Right. Like, yeah. It sucks if you're a player or a fan of that program.
Yeah.
But they're not they would need to prove to me that they're the same without him.
Look, if a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about Texas Tech and, you know, it's like, it's okay that they got beat because their backup quarterback was in.
Right.
So if that's the rule if that is the level at which we're actually like looking at and comparing these teams, and we're saying, you know, the absence of someone is an excuse for a loss, then that absence should also be potentially a predictor of bad things to come.
Yeah.
So it sucks. But I mean, like, I have the same question about Tulane as well. If John Summerall were to accept, you know, an SEC job and leave, which I think any SEC program hiring Tulane's head coach would probably say, yeah, dude, like you got to come now. The portal is opening. Early signing day is happening. All of that stuff. How does that affect them? Especially when like, we don't even know where the hell these G5 teams are ranked or how much separation is between any of them. I mean, they're not, well, I guess they're 24 this week, but still like it's very interesting.
Yeah. On Lane specifically, when we can segment to this a little bit because it seems to be what the major conversation is. What are the, I mean, yeah, so we'll really grill you here at 11 o'clock at night, but what are the chances he's setting all of this up? I saw Barris Elite tweet this. I've seen other people imply it. We talked about it just before we got on air. What are the chances he's setting all of this up and going on this big tour so that he can come back to Ole Miss and say, I turned them down. This is the program you need to be at. And really try and, as much as he's pissing off what it seems like is the university, the athletic department, the fans, the players to probably some degree, if he comes back and tries to use it as a recruiting tool, first of all, like, what are the chances that that's the case? And second of all, like, I mean, that's got to be effective.
I think it'd be very effective. And I think that there's a better chance of that's what's happening than a lot of people want to acknowledge. And his current contract, is it, $15 million a year? Like some people are speculating Florida or LSU may be willing to pay him. No, it's not. I'm sure they could get him closer to that. But right now, dude, he sits at $9 million a year and he's got $2.6 million a year in bonuses on that contract. And some of those bonuses are like, hey, once you win 5 SEC games, the 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever, you get $150,000 a win. Like there's things like just making the college football playoff, huge bonus, winning a first round playoff game, $500,000. So he's got, by the way, that contract, anytime he wins 7 regular season games, gets extended a year.
Yeah.
There's another $9 million. So that's one of the best contracts in sports, in my opinion. It really is. And if you were to layer on, another $2.5, $3 million a year to that, the thing that Ole Miss has that nobody wants to talk about in Baton Rouge or Gainesville, they've got Walker Jones, dude. And Walker Jones at the Grove Collective, he's a bad man. Okay. We interviewed him at Dog Central before the Georgia Ole Miss game, but he worked for Jimmy Sexton. Okay. Like for a long time. And
he gets the game.
People who work for Jimmy Sexton don't tend to lose. And he's an Ole Miss guy, so he's not going anywhere. He's not somebody that would follow Lane somewhere else. He's a former Ole Miss football player, and he's done a magnificent job of organizing the Grove Collective and structuring that, and that has been their advantage, and that's why they've gotten so competitive. Like Ole Miss can go get Walter Nolan. They can go get these guys that they get out of the portal. And credit to Lane, who has been, I would say, probably the best and most consistent portal evaluator in the sport since the transfer portal started. But I just think the alignment that Ole Miss has is something that I'm not sure, despite his past experiences as a head coach in other places, I'm not sure Lane really understands how rare it is in the SEC to be at a program where everything you ask for gets a yes and also comes without strings attached. Like
correct.
You want to go to, if you were to go to Texas or Florida or LSU, like that money comes with a whole lot of hoops to jump through and a whole lot of conditions on how it gets spent. And
that's the best. I mean, I have done so much Lane content the last 2 weeks. I have been interviewed about Lane, not that I have any connections or anything, but like just thoughts on Lane, this, that, the other. I'll tell you, and I'm not just buttering your butt here. That's the best thing that I've heard. LSU is offering him the world, and Florida is offering him 6 continents, maybe just a little bit less than the world, if you believe some of these reports and rumors. And they're doing it out of desperation.
Yep.
Like that's why they're doing it. Florida, like this isn't a shot at UF, but they've hired 4 bad coaches in a row. They are desperate for a winner there. And listen, I am one that would love to see the big 3 in the state of Florida get back to where they were running the sport. I'd love that. I would love it. It's great. I live in Tampa. It'd be great for me. It'd be great for me from a content perspective. It'd make these games that I go to even bigger every week. I'd love it. I don't know if it's really possible anymore, but I think it's always going to be like 1 or 2 are good and the other 2 are like whatever. But it'd be great. Florida is desperate to get back to the Urban Meyer days and the Steve Spurrier days. They are so desperate for it, especially because they've got a good basketball team and they've got a good softball team. They've got a good baseball team and they just won it in football. It is a football town. It is a football state and they are the flagship university of the state. LSU, just won 6 years ago. They are desperate to get back to it. It's the only thing. I know they've got the Saints. I know they've got it's the only thing that matters in that state. Like their governor is involved because of how much football matters in that state. They are desperate to win. Texas is not open. Same thing there. If they were to offer him or Sark wasn't there for some reason, I know there's been NFL rumors, they would be desperate to win because, again, it's the biggest. I mean, the Cowboys are there, right? So maybe not the biggest thing, but it's one of the biggest things in that state. And so and the biggest difference is you hit the nail on the head. Ole Miss is not doing it out of desperation. Now, Ole Miss wants to win. They're in the SEC. They're offering Lane everything because of appreciation. That's the difference.
Right.
It's desperation versus appreciation of what he's done and what he's built there. And it doesn't come with strings attached. Ole Miss goes 8-4 next year. Ole Miss has a down year. Nobody's knocking on his door. Now he goes 4-8, 3 years in a row. Yeah, like they're going to, that's different. But go 8-4 your first year at Florida. I spoke with somebody at Florida last night. I said, what are the realistic expectations if he's here? And I was like, is it like, oh, you get an 8-4? And they were like, no, we expect to compete right away. The portal exists. You've got Lagway. If you can fit, try and fix him or find somebody else. You've got talent on the roster.
He probably could fix Lagway. Here, let me throw this at you.
Hey, I'll get right back to the video, but first I do want to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper. Make sure that you are on the Sleeper app. We appreciate all of their support this football season. Use our code CFA for a 100% match up to $100. We will play the more or less game on Wednesday on the Power 2 live here on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed and don't miss it. Make sure that you've already deposited and you're already good to go. While you're doing holiday shopping for everybody else, make sure you're on the Sleeper app taking care of yourself too. Check their terms and conditions because terms of use do apply. We appreciate Sleeper for their support.
Let me throw this idea at you, okay? Try this on for size. Because I sat in the press conferences post-game Georgia, Texas this last weekend, and I have rarely in my life seen a human being look more miserable than Arch Manning looked sitting at the podium and listening to questions from Texas media about, his leadership and how he's going to take responsibility and stuff, and gave all the right answers. Okay. And, didn't say anything wrong, but like, you can tell that this whole thing is worn on him.
Yeah.
And that the way the season has gone is worn on him. Why not Lane stay in Oxford, Arch leave Texas, go to Ole Miss, get the Jackson Dart treatment put on you. Like use your legs, use your arms, play in an attack that will protect you from a run game standpoint, be with a coaching staff who knows really well how to put its personnel into the best situations to succeed. And then, go be a top 5, top 10 pick the next year. Like I just think he is, you leave Ole Miss and you have to start over, man. You have to start over. You got to rehire. It's hard the chemistry and the alchemy of just finding that momentum and putting personalities together is really hard. It is. And what you said is right. The money they've given him is out of, it's out of a desire to be competitive, and it is out of an appreciation for how he can help them do that. But it is not desperation, and there's not people there like, hey, Lane, you want to put a basketball goal on the sidelines at Texas? Go ahead and tell me how many conversations you're going to have with people to get that done. Like,
how many calls
want to tweet every morning?
Tweet something slick after a loss,
right? Yeah. How many calls are you going to get with your tweets and all of that, whether that's in Austin or Gainesville? Baton Rouge is different. I'll say that. Like Baton Rouge, I think they're kind of used to a certain level of quirkiness from their coaches.
Les and
Orgeron. Yeah. But I just think, man, like quality of life matters. And there's different kinds of it in the sport. Mark Stoops chose to be at a place where he might not ever compete for titles, but would make a lot of money and not feel the day-to-day pressure that you might feel at other jobs. And I think that has worked out pretty well for him. And I just don't see, especially why now Lane, if Lane was really worried about winning national titles, I'll say this, and this might come off harsh, but if he was really worried about winning national titles, then he wouldn't be doing this whole private jet job fair circus right now
No,
with
no.
his team in the middle of a title run. And B, he would take whatever money Ole Miss is about to try and give him to keep him to stay and say, put more of that into the Grove Collective.
Yeah.
Let's ramp up our high school recruiting to be a little more competitive with what I might be able to do in a place like LSU or Gainesville. And we already run the portal. Let's go do this thing.
Yeah. Let's go from a contender to like a playoff contender to a championship contender. Let's take that extra 10 million and go do this.
Well, what does it say as final thought I'll share on him is 2023 Georgia Ole Miss. I was at that game and Georgia really, beat them down and you could tell the moment was too big for Ole Miss. The atmosphere was too big for Ole Miss. The players on Georgia's roster were too big. And I have a ton of respect for Lane that he sat there and said, this is the problem, and I'm going to work backwards from this moment for the next year to figure out how we can beat this team. And everything we're going to do is going to be designed around that. But guess what? Like, it took 12 months for him to do all those things that he felt like, and he was able to do it, right? Like, he was able to get all the things he needed. He got the defensive lineman in the portal. He got the size and all of that. And so it's just, if you can beat Georgia in the way that they did, then I don't know who you cannot beat. Yeah. And so therefore I'm forced to believe you can compete for national titles there. And really, I think a lot of the reason why they maybe have not has been of his own doing, not of Ole Miss's doing. It's been the way that he went and did a freaking, victory tour after that Georgia game last year and took every media request under the sun to talk about how brilliantly they game planned and how they figured out how to plan, for a year to beat Georgia instead of focusing on going and beating Florida.
Yeah.
And guess where that won't fly? Guess where letdowns after big wins will drive everybody crazy and make things toxic? Baton Rouge, Gainesville. So, I mean, dude, like, you can be you right now and everybody's thrilled about it. It's just, it's sad, honestly, man. I find it sad to watch him kind of going down this path. And it's not to say I don't think it's possible he'll succeed somewhere else, but it almost, the way this has played out over the last few days with just the public vibes, like the public nature of it, it almost feels a little self-destructive. And considering what he shared about his past, I find it sad to see him sort of dipping his toes in that water.
Reverting.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's becoming, bigger than making himself bigger. And he likes the attention. I get it. We all like attention, right? Like, I get it. And these are prideful men that make millions of dollars to coach a game.
Sure.
But it almost feels like it's getting away. It
does.
And it's going a little far.
Yeah. And it's like, it feels to me like if it gets away, like in this nature, kind of in this style, the way this is playing out, I kind of feel like it's going to get away at the next place too. Maybe not in the same way, but it feels like an indicator that like maybe you're really not ready. Maybe you're, maybe you're not quite as aware of perceptions and just the level of sort of maturity and self-sacrifice that you've got to have in one of these jobs sometimes. And I don't know if he blows this up, it's the thought that's popped in my mind, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but it is basically like Ole Miss tried to turn a hoe into a housewife, and at the end of the day, like she emptied out their bank account, and after a few good years went and found the richer guy, who would buy her the Bentley instead of the Cadillac.
College football, chat CFP. No, I'm spot on there. I think you're right. And the Lane drama, we'll see if it continues on the next Tuesday or not. And if so, we'll talk about it again. But Graham Coffey, Dog Central, we'll link everything in the description. If you missed any of the other videos, we did talk about the rankings too in those. You can go check them out. But Graham, I appreciate you hanging out another week, man. We'll do it again on Tuesday.
Absolutely. Enjoy doing it with you. Thanks for having me, man.